Gatineau Park is not only the largest green space in the whole capital region of Canada, but it's also the second largest urban park in the world. However, in many ways, this federally owned park is quite odd. Occupying an area of more than 361 square kilometers, did you know this is the second most visited park in the whole country? It was the location of the failed Meech Accord, full of history and beauty. Make sure you subscribe and let's get into Canada's oddest park. To put you in a bit of context of where we're situated, Gatineau Park covers 361 square kilometers. It's surrounded by the communities of Gatineau, Pontiac, La Pêche, and Chelsea. It's the second largest urban park in the world if you consider an urban park just a park inside a whole metropolitan area. The municipalities around Gatineau are mostly rural though. This park is surprisingly the second most visited park in Canada, which is mentioned on the National Capital Commission's website, and they're the ones who manage the park, so I won't question it, but it did surprise me. However, it's also only 4 kilometers from Ottawa, making it popular with Ottawa citizens and its surrounding. Now, the administration of Gatineau Park is also quite odd, and for that, we need to look at its history. Gatineau Park was not only the first national park petitioned for in Quebec, but it was also meant to be the first outside of the Rocky Mountains. And this all started in 1938 when the federal government bought their first parcel of land in the Gatineau Hills, which the park is currently located on. And as a park, this natural land was no longer exploited for resources, but rather prized for conservation and enjoyment. However, Canada Park would be excluded from the National Parks Act, making it one of the only parks in Canada that is federally owned, but not seen as a national park per se. This has direct repercussions on its ecology, boundaries, and landmass, which we'll get into in just a second. You see, Gatineau Park was excluded as one of the prime ministers actually lived in it. You see, Prime Minister Mackenzie King actually lived in what is now Gatineau Park, and there were a few dozen houses or so. At the time, he feared criticism and he desired privacy. And you might wonder what the criticism would be all about. And well, it all started on April 7th, 1927. You see, the notion of construction in Gatineau National Park was revived in the House of Commons, where MPs debated a plan to establish the Federal District Commission, which would construct parks and parkways on both sides of the Ottawa River. During the debate, Conservative MP John Edwards, though, accused Prime Minister King of intending to establish a park around his Kingsmere house and make it easier to reach through a parkway, though he refuted the claim the criticism influenced King's later park decisions. And that was 11 years before they actually bought the land. And the land they did buy was only a small parcel compared to what we know as Gatineau Park, and in 1949 they would acquire an additional 10,000 acres, but it would only be around 1960 that the modern Gatineau Park would take shape. The park was also at the center of the Meech Lake Accord. This now political place held a conference on proposed amendments to the constitutions, and well, it failed. But Gatineau Park, a park I feel no one really knows about, is yet again in the middle of a historic event, even though it failed. Gatineau Park also has pretty cool attractions. It holds more than 50 lakes, which one is Pink Lake, one of only 58 known meromedic lakes in North America, which is a type of lake that has distinct layers of water that do not mix seasonally. In a meromedic lake, there is a permanent stratification, meaning that there's a layer of water at the top that doesn't mix with the water below it. This lack of mixing can be due to differences in temperature, salinity, or density between the layers. Unlike in a typical lake where the water layers mix regularly, in a meromedic lake the layers remain separate. This can lead to unique ecological and chemical conditions in different layers of the lake, such as Pink Lake, which has a bunch of algae at the bottom, which gives it a bright green color. Now, Gatineau Park has a bunch of other cool historical attractions, such as the Mackenzie King's house, and some cool rich scientist ruins, a non-official nudist beach, and much more. It's a historical park and many eventful things have happened to it and within it, and it's quite beautiful. If you've enjoyed this video, make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one.